Part 2. John feels the intensity of public hostility as soon as he steps outside his cottage. In town, he's met with cold stares and averted eyes. At the diner, the chatter quiets when he enters and no one meets his gaze. Even Robert Cleary, who once offered subtle support, now looks away, shaking his head. Clearly word has spread about John accusing the Holloways of foul play in Evelyn's disappearance. In a town ruled by their influence, he's now branded an enemy. After lunch, John finds go-away outsider keyed into the side of his car. His hands shake with anger that they'd stoop to such tactics, but it only strengthens his resolve to expose the truth. At the library, Emily gives John a sympathetic smile, but her eyes are troubled. "Are you sure pursuing this is wise?" she asks, in a hushed voice. John squeezes her hand reassuringly. "I have to see this through, for Evelyn's sake." Emily presses her lips together but nods. She understands, even if she can't openly support him anymore. Combing through the archives, John finally discovers Evelyn's hidden diary, wedged behind a shelf. It contains striking details about her passionate relationship with Richard Holloway Sr. and arguments about leaving town together. John's pulse quickens reading Evelyn's lyrical prose and intimate thoughts. Her words bring the story to life. The final entry reads, "Richard refuses to leave his wretched family. I must confront him about our future, or end this torment. If he won't choose me, I'm telling everyone about our affair and leaving." John shouts, "She was going to reveal their affair and leave the town. Holloway must have flown into a rage and killed her." Evelyn's fate is laid bare, but with the Holloways still ruling local justice, can the truth set her spirit free? John knows he must confront Richard's descendants publicly, hoping to force a confession or revelation, but his planning is disrupted late one night by the sound of shattering glass. Heart-pounding, John finds a brick thrown through his front window. Attached is a note reading, "Walk away now, some truths have sharp edges." John's hands tremble with anger. Have the Holloways resorted to threats and intimidation to bury Evelyn's story? He won't be deterred. At the Founders' Day festival, John spies Mayor Andrew Holloway glad-handing voters near the bandstand. Eyes blazing with purpose, he marches up and taps the microphone. "May I have your attention, please? I have an important announcement about the Holloway family." The crowd turns, a murmur rippling through them. Mayor Holloway's eyes widen in alarm. John continues, "I have definitive proof that Richard Holloway Sr. murdered Evelyn Marshall in 1952 to hide their affair, and the Holloways have suppressed the truth ever since." Gasps and shouts erupt. Mayor Holloway charges forward, face purple with rage. "How dare you smear my grandfather's name with wild accusations? I'll have you run out of town for spreading lies." John stands firm. "The proof is solid as stone. Evelyn kept a diary detailing your grandfather's violence and attempts to silence her, but I aim to finally give her a voice." The crowd presses in, morbidly fascinated. Clara Holloway, the bookshop owner, pushes to the front, eyes blazing. "That's absurd slander, Mr. Hargrove. My family prides itself on our upstanding values and legacy in this town. I insist you cease these ridiculous allegations at once." Her genteel manners barely conceal the steel in her voice. John has scratched the lion's den and found sharp claws inside, but the damage is done. Doubts now shroud the Holloway name. That night, John meets with a lawyer friend who reviews the evidence. After much hemming and hawing, he breaks the bad news. "Without living witnesses, and after so long, I'm afraid the odds of prosecution are virtually zero." John's stomach drops. He saw legal justice as Evelyn's only path to rest. "But the truth matters," his friend insists. "Write a book exposing the facts. Keep Evelyn's memory alive." John walks home in a daze, the lawyer's pragmatism like a nail in his crusade's coffin. Is moral justice empty without punishment? Approaching the cabin, his last hope evaporates. The front door hangs off its hinges, the interior ransacked. Evelyn's diary, crime scene photos, his research, all destroyed or stolen. The Holloways have entombed the evidence, denying Evelyn even truth's redemption. John sinks to the floor amidst the wreckage, head in hands. All his efforts were futile. Evelyn will remain forgotten, her story silenced. In the following weeks, John is completely shunned. The diner, the bar, the library, all once welcoming refugees, now regard him with contempt. Even Emily averts her eyes when they pass on the street, the gulf between them sudden and absolute. He is well and truly alone. The isolation gnaws at him. Bitterness and frustration his only companions. He failed Evelyn. Her pleading spirit haunts his restless dreams. But as weeks pass, John's despair shifts to resolve. The town may ignore Evelyn's plight, but he still can record her story. He'll write a book exposing the details the Holloways tried to bury forever. While justice remains beyond reach, he can offer Evelyn a different redemption. He can restore her voice, share her truth. She won't be reduced to a few faded headlines and bloodstains in a forgotten cellar. John starts organizing his scattered notes and rebuilding the case details from memory. A writer now, not an investigator. The quest continues to honor Evelyn's stolen life with the only redemption left, preserving her story for posterity. John's parting gift as her unlikely champion. John Hargrove sits alone in his summer cottage, surrounded by scattered notes and crime scene photos, the evidence of his tireless investigation into Evelyn Marshall's disappearance, an investigation that now seems utterly futile. The defiant hope that had fueled him these past weeks gutters out, leaving behind bitter resignation. The Holloways buried the truth too deep for him to exhume. Evelyn will remain a forgotten footnote in this town's history. An unresolved ink stain on the tidy narrative the Holloways have written for themselves. John's shoulders slump under the weight of despair. He failed Evelyn. Her pleading spirit will continue to haunt this valley, anchored by the violent echoes of her final moments. Forgotten, without justice or remembrance. A restless ghost trapped between worlds. John slowly begins gathering up his notes, painstakingly compiled through weeks of obsessive research. The details of Evelyn's life and disappearance he had painstakingly reconstructed. Her story deserves better than to be scattered to the winds or consigned to ashes. If the justice system could not be compelled to act, he would honor Evelyn's memory another way. He would write her story and share it with the world. One man on a mission to restore a stolen voice. Over the next few days, John revisits locals who still carry flickers of memory about Evelyn Marshall. Her life before that summer of 1952. The searching eyes that followed their every movement during those fruitless weeks of hunting for her. The hollow sadness that lingered after hope faded like morning mist. John records each scrap of memory and personal anecdote. Every photograph discovered in dusty boxes. Her story takes shape through the faded recollections of those who knew her. Their collected fragments weave into a tapestry of her forgotten life. Once his manuscript is complete, John organizes a small memorial service in the quiet clearing by the cabin where Evelyn's story ended. He invites the entire town, a gesture of reconciliation. To his surprise, many attend, including some who had scorned his efforts. Their presence signifies a collective shift in consciousness regarding the case. No longer content to leave the past buried. In the following weeks, John's account gains traction. The local paper runs excerpts and larger regional outlets soon follow. Evelyn's story spreads for the first time in over 70 years, her memory preserved, echoing from one stranger to the next. The redemption John had despaired of now blossoming as her tale takes root in the public consciousness. One night, John awakens from another intense dream of Evelyn, but this time the details feel more like recovered memories than imagined visions. Suddenly, with utter certainty, John realizes he is experiencing fragments of Evelyn's life firsthand. He is connected to her tragedy in the most primal way. He is the reincarnation of her soul. For days afterwards, John quietly absorbs the implications of this revelation. By the lake near his cottage, he finds peace with this supernatural connection, the inexorable force that drove his relentless pursuit of justice against all odds. Evelyn's enduring spirit, woven into the fibre of his own. In a final encounter, John crosses paths with Clara Holloway in town. He resists confronting her with his now unshakable faith in Evelyn's spiritual presence. Instead, he expresses only the fervent hope that her story has brought closure to all those still living, with this buried tragedy in their marrow. In the weeks that follow, John's investigation reignites interest in other forgotten cold cases. His efforts spark a broader public conversation about the powerful validation of truth and justice, no matter how delayed. Proof that remembrance alone can sometimes provide the balm for past wounds beyond legal remedy. As for John, sharing Evelyn's story has left him profoundly changed. No longer just a retired investigator living a solitary life, now guardian of the forgotten, seeker of stolen voices lingering in the veil between this world and the next. He dedicates himself to unveiling and preserving lost stories that still echo down the years, searching for someone to hear them. Situated by the lake, John reflects on the strange arc of his journey. He knows now that redemption takes many forms. Though unable to alter the tragic events of 1952, he's brought some measure of peace to one restless soul, and in doing so found an unexpected new purpose for himself late in life. Not every battle can end in victory, but even in failure there can be meaning. For John, laying Evelyn's ghost to rest is achievement enough.